Good morning, fellow classmates. Today we will be discussing the part 2 of the Zoom reports. This includes the opening of the Excel program. If you'll notice, I am not wearing my sunglasses. This is the only time I can. The light level in this room is extremely low, which is perfect for me. It also makes the picture a little bit weird and pixelated, so my skin color is a little wrong, but that's going to happen. If you find your pictures come out pixelated, try increasing the light level in your room if you can. As you can see, the room behind me in the window is extremely bright because the room I'm in doesn't have any light on. I don't need it. My vision is really good, and my vision problems make leaving it off a very good thing. Now, let us get on with what we are supposed to be doing, and hopefully I have done this right. If I haven't, you've got a good example of how to flunk. Actually, Benzie's really nice, so it shouldn't be a problem. I found interesting in problem number 1 the speeds that all the things around us are moving. It was quite interesting. The percentage map came out quite nicely. That 61% is the local group of galaxies that our little galaxy, the Milky Way, lives in. That we are orbiting Andromeda galaxy is also affects our speed. Our little solar system, 18%. Earth orbit, and Earth's rotation barely falls onto the map at all. You can't even see the blue line. Oh, come on. Do what I want you to just once. No, it's not going to do it. Okay. Now, the next thing I found interesting, and I have a thing about things men made and things that God provided. So here we have a comparison of Uluru, it has to be the Aboriginal word, or Ayers Rock, as I was always told it was, some European's name, to Angel Falls, and over here in the corner to the Mariana Trench. And those are interesting, but if you look up here in the corner, here's the Great Pyramids and the Eiffel Tower, and I think that was the Washington Monument. And this is the Arch in Missouri. Hoover Dam, which is nowhere near the height of Angel Falls. And the tower built in India, I think. I looked it up, but I should have cropped that one. Cropped it and added it to this one. I didn't. But now for the stats. That it is greater, Angel Falls is greater than all the man-made items we just discussed. The Leaning Tower of Pisa, Hoover Dam, the Eiffel Tower, and the Gateway added together. That Ayers Rock is 3 times longer than, and that the Mariana Trench is up at 10 to the 4th power, which, since everything else was 10 to the 2nd power or smaller, shows just how small things can get and how big things can get here on Earth. The astronomical stuff was already too big to think about. For problem 2, now when you do something below and you change the things, you end up with a warped pie chart. So it was a pie chart, it just got, the circles I did got stretched out, but they were measurements of the Katera chart, and that it was 15% was what it came out to of that huge map when they only had 5% share. The next thing I need to look at this thing, and some of you may laugh, but to read this and to be able to see anything I read, I do actually have to put the sunglasses back on. Even in the dark room, I can't see what I've got written down. As you can see, Katera's share is half of Otros, but the bias graph share says 15%, 1.5 times what Otros has. And that's probably just initials and not really a word anyway. But what looks like a real pie chart can be deceptive too, as the arena funding chart below shows. Give me just 1 second. So here we have arena funding on a pie chart. It says the arena was funded 50% by the city and 45% by Maloofs. No, I probably didn't pronounce that right, but I'm pretending. AEG looks like they had about 25%, and then about 30% was given by donors. But if you go by the actual percentages of the money they provided, the unknown donors provided 2%, the Maloofs 21%, AEG only 12%, and 65% came from the city. Looked like they didn't want to admit how many people did not want the stupid arena. They were not going to get those extra donations that they promised everybody would be taking care of it. So let's take a moment to look at Emily's mother's chart. And we see that it really looks like Emily's got a good score. But her mom really needs to get something else to brag about. According to the chart, she only had an average of 2 more than according to the chart, she had only an average of 6 more than Diana. And the honest chart with zeros makes it very clear Hildy was not through the floor. And where did I hide that one? There it is. So here we are at presidential politics, and that is always an edited version. And we see 2 graphs. One of them provided by the donors to the Republican Party shows a drastic thing at 0.02%. 0.02%. But if you put the zero where it belongs. Yeah, it wasn't that much difference. And he was cleaning up the politics from before him. Oh, that was Bush's father. No wonder they were being careful. So, for problem number 3, we had a very creepy and interesting discussion. And here in the Venn diagram, you can see how very massive the problem is. But this diagram isn't about numbers for me. It's about my personal health. I have low blood sugar, and though not covered in the graph, it is a precursor to diabetes. If I crash it too many times, I will be diabetic. I watch my salt like a hawk. My mom's blood pressure kept her in the hospital so often. And I always hated salt. Everything salty was disgusting to me. It was always too salted for me. I didn't know at that time. It's exactly the same problem. Your body is not handling salt properly. So one person has been ignoring it for years and starts craving salt, and another person will hate things that taste salty. Everything will taste too salty to you if you have a problem with the salt. The final thing, oh, and the salt is the high blood pressure in this equation. The final thing, yes, I was over 265 pounds for a while. And it's been really hard to lose that weight. The medication got me up there, but it was because it was keeping me from exercising like I normally had. I am down from my worst, but I am not free yet of the word obese, and I've not got any hope of getting completely free of it for a long time. Doesn't say I'm not trying, but in the real world, trying and keeping a school schedule have not been compatible. But those were infinitely large numbers. And if we go by all the people in the United States, the math really doesn't mean that much. So I took that Venn diagram and I copied it and I pulled it down to talk to you. Because if you have high blood pressure right now and you are 20, you may only know that you don't really like salty things. You may only find that some things taste salty when other people say they don't. This diagram is personal. Type 1 diabetes, or type 2 diabetes. One person in that room has it possibly without knowing it. If you crave water, if you're always in the bathroom, if you have any problems like that, any personal issues, yeah, I'm talking about husband and wife. If you can't get things done, if you can't feel for the person at the right time, that can be related. Your blood sugar will keep you from having interest because your body isn't capable of handling it. So if you have a problem, check it out. It could be bad. High blood pressure, like I said, always had a problem with salt. Didn't know what it was until I got a little too much salt when I was in the hospital and my blood pressure was high. I'm like, my blood pressure is never high. I never had mom's problem. And then I realized I had been on IV fluids for a while. And that's saline. And that's all it took. That much salt in my system and my body was screaming for help. This number really shocked me. When the percentages come down to it, 5 people in that room will be far heavier than they need to be, not including the ones in the other parts of the graph. And this interesting, shows a direct correlation between type 2 diabetes and obesity. 4 people in that room likely would have both. Now, granted, most of you are younger. You haven't run into the blood sugar problems and other things that will make hereditary issues show up. The final section is the center of this map, and I put it in red. Look around. In a classroom of 26 people, only 7 of you are free of all these problems, and at least one of you is most likely standing in the center with me. So then we move down to the mall patrons. And you can see the trend line with the mall patrons as everybody shrinks. Well, obviously the 34-inch high is a child, unless there were some short people that they talked to, but it's unlikely. Oh no, my chart's missing. I wonder where it went. Chart was eaten by 2013. It does not have the whisker chart. You can only get that in 2016. There is a mathematical equation for 2013 to produce a whisker chart, and I will do on my YouTube an instruction video, because every one of the YouTube videos I found was ultimately confusing. So if you're using the computers in the library or any of the other computers that that can record this, that isn't Benzie's, you will need to either do a different kind of chart or use the mathematical formula, but it'll be on my YouTube channel, so you can find it. And that'll help. You have to group it a little differently, and you have to do the math, which the part does automatically. But the assignment wasn't about whether 2013 or 2016 was being used. It referenced height differences. And though the trend line shows that this was a massive height difference, if you look at the heights, I'm not a short girl, and I don't fit on the cadets map. I'm just barely on the map at all. The shortest cadet is 5'6". I'm 5'8", but there's only one other that's anywhere close to me. The rest of them are all extremely tall. Being that I'm a tall girl, I would say they're guys. Not only guys, but tall guys. We got 2 shorter guys in the room, and then all of them are on stilts, including one that's 20 inches. 80 inches is 80 inches is 6'8". This shows the correlation between charts. It does not always work. You can mix groups. You could even do a comparison of adults or a comparison of adult males with the cadets. If there were women in the cadets, that's fine. You could do adult things. But if you include children, you can't compare heights with military cadets. It just doesn't fit. And so any 2 numbers can be compared. But if you compare the wrong ones, or you use a control group that is completely off the wall, like mall patrons, it doesn't correlate. And you've got to you could make a really odd assumption that cadets were all taller than regular mall patrons, but that wouldn't fit. Because in the reality, the mall patrons, if you look at the tallest mall patron, "77 inches, very close to 80, and that's the only one of the cadets that was taller than that gentleman. Now, the sleep pattern of Duke students. This is a very interesting thing because it was interesting getting the chart to do what you wanted it to. And I thought I had this narrow enough to read without having to fight it. So let me cheat. Come here, rascal. Oh, come on, let me expand it just for 1 second. I need to be able to see it all. When using any program, make sure you put it back after you temporarily expand it so you can read it. And that's not enough. I know this was only supposed to go 15 to 18 minutes, but it is not gonna be easy. So let's see if we can get started now. As you can see, I marked 8 hours, but I worked at Wendy's, open to close, opening the next morning after an open to close, and again and again and again. It got even worse when they kicked the minimum wage to whatever the monthly pay scale was. So if you got paid for 2 weeks on 2 week scale, they could cut the minimum wage even if they had you work over 10 days straight. The last pay period from Wendy's covered 17 days. I still had overtime when I quit because I couldn't take it anymore. So the one thing I do take exception to in the video was the statement that you cannot have negative hours of sleep. I disagree. That is, after 24 hours, everything goes into the negative. If you've been up for 28 hours straight, you have 4 negative hours of sleep. And so as far as the chart goes, having negative hours, I do understand. You can't keep it up for very long. It will kill you, but it is possible, unfortunately. A good reason to go to school and become a mechanic, which has scheduled hours and leaves the office at 5. Because there's no way I could do Wendy's now. I barely survived it then. Now, so through with the fun, or the silly stuff, or with the serious stuff. Now for the fun stuff. Elon Musk's flamethrowers. The videos were really neat, by the way. But that it would have only taken 2 or 3 for him to make, for you to make the distance between between profit and 100,000 was quite interesting. At worst, as you can see, where did those numbers go to? Okay, are the formulas still there? No. The formulas, okay, I just found another glitch product of having two different versions. Apparently 2013 does not like the math function I used to figure out those, and it erased the point of transfer here. So I will add that to the list of weird things you might find when you're doing it, because I had this at green like that. And this one at crazy wild green profit. But because it didn't like the math I did from those cells, it erased my math, which is kind of weird. And the worst, the number is missing. Okay. Let's do this. See if it gives me back the original number. No, it did not. Now it's just a confused cell. Interesting. Well, that's my whole report, and hopefully I'll have figured out the weird glitches between 2013 and 2016 by my next one. Have a good day.